Jason, who got the pass to Matthew Ryan. Out for Polamalu, pushed on for Jason Smith. Intercepted by Meninga. McGregor pursues. McGregor's after Meninga. The crowd roars. The crowd roars. Their delight as the Australian captain scores a try in the grand final.
Never gets old, that footage. Big Mal crossing over for the grand final in 1994. What a way to end your career, Mal. You didn't make it about yourself, but I know that the boys behind your back rallied around to make it out for you.
It was a great week, actually, leading up to it. Our preparation, I vividly remember, our preparation was near perfect. Everyone was fit, everyone was healthy. All our sessions were great. We just had this confidence about us. At that time, we didn't play very well the week before against North Sydney, and we just made a pact sort of straight after the grand final that, hey, we've just got to pull our heads in and make sure we do everything we possibly can, each individual, to play well the following week. And for me, that was a huge treat that everyone performed that day, and we won fairly convincingly, which was even better.
What did you think when he said Paul Osborne?
Oh no. he was en route to England. He was going to play in England. Aussie. Then Tim just said, stay here. We could use you through the finals. And as it turned out, Aussie played the best 22 minutes of his whole life. And it was fantastic. And obviously he was the man of the moment. And we scored a lot of points early in the game. It kicked us on, and we're pretty hard to reel back after that. But it was an amazing game and sort of aftermath career for Aussie after that.
Yeah. Well, for yourself, you went on the Kangaroo Tour, the fourth one for yourself, and it was a great way to end there as well. You scored the try in a match against France at the end there as well.
So it was all, I wouldn't call it fairy tale stuff. France weren't strong at the time, but it's always good to, have something that you can hold on to when you finish playing footy and scoring in the obviously in the grand final, and that's the last try too, and scoring the last try ever in a test match against France. It's special, but it was part of what was a really good footy team, and a great year for me personally, and great year for the Raiders and the Kangaroos, who went on to win the Ashes series as well against the English.
Do you miss the concept of the Kangaroo Tour?
It's coming back, Nick. So part of my role as the national coach is to hopefully lift the profile of the National Rugby League. So the National Rugby League Federations, it's bringing it back. So we've got a 5-year cycle, and part of that's World Cup, part of it's a Kangaroo Tour, part of it's going to be a Lions Tour. They come back over. The Great Britain Lions are going to come to Australia and New Zealand, so it's back, mate.
Oh, great. Is that going to mean you play all the club sides as well, or is it just against the countries?
Well, we want to play club sides or representative sides in those countries. So a good example of that is that we may play against the Wiggins and the St Helens and the Warringtons, the Leeds over there. Or we may play against the Prime Minister's 13
in Canberra
against France. Yeah, exactly. So it could be like in Australia, it could be New South Wales country, it could be Queensland country. Just things like that bring National Rugby League back into our grassroots.
Very exciting stuff. We'll get on to the World Cup in a moment there. Of course, you're very involved there. But I want to talk about this Sunday, Mal, the grand final, and your perspective. We look at the Cowboys, heavy underdogs, up against the machine that we call the Melbourne Storm. In 1989, you guys faced the Tigers. You won 9 in a row to get there. Back then, it was a top 5. The experts always said, you got to get in the top 3 to at least win a comp. You got into the grand final. Of course, the Tigers lost the year before, so they were heavy favourites to take over. Gus Gould came out in the paper and said the Raiders don't have a forward pack to win the comp. I know that you played in 87, but as an underdog, can you get into the mindset what your preparation back then and what the Cowboys probably need to do to beat the Storm?
I don't think that they think themselves as underdogs. I mean, they're playing the underdog card, but the way they play at the moment, they're a very confident footy team, and led by a very, very confident leader in Michael Morgan, and Jason Tamalolo, who's hit his peak in his career. So I don't think they'll be considering that they're just going there to make the numbers up as we did. We were very confident. Through the week we learned the lessons from '87 as well. So and who says you can't do anything? So we were the first team, even outside of Sydney, to win a competition as well. So it doesn't matter where you finish. It's how you get there, and then when you get there, well, then it's certainly again a different ball game. So they say,
they've proved it, haven't they?
The finals, even make the finals is a different ball game, that's right. But when you make the grand final, it's another different ball game. So it's a 2-horse race, and anyone can win on that particular day. So the Cowboys won't be thinking underdogs. They'll be thinking they're a great chance to win the footy game.
To touch on 89, we could probably talk about that all day, but you were down at 12-2, and I've spoken to a lot of the boys that played in that game, and without embarrassing you, Mal, they talk about you really kept the boys really calm at half-time. Likes of Gary Belcher, you made a bit of a blunder towards the end there where he didn't catch the kick on the full. But they said Mal really, the likes of Glenn Lazarus, Laurie, Ricky, Bradley, Boxhead, Walters, they all said Mal just kind of kept us calm, that belief running through our minds that we could do the job.
Well, I thought we were the better side. I really did. I thought we had good field position and we're playing outstanding footy. We're controlling the ball really well. But in Balmain's favour, I mean, their defence was extraordinary, very, very, extraordinarily good through that first 40 minutes. And then the bounce the ball, there was an intercept, obviously, a ball on the ground. Then that bounce, that horrendous bounce that Gary Belcher should have caught on the full. Oh, poor bug. I give him a hell all the time I see him. But anyway. But, we were very confident going in half-time. We were pretty calm and we didn't have to change anything. We shouldn't be panicking. We were going really well and had great, like I said before, we had great belief in the footy team. So we just made sure that we kept on doing the things we were doing. We were practicing all week, did all year. So at the end of the day, it took us near 80 minutes to get back into the game and draw it. But then momentum was on our side. Confidence was on our side, and I thought we rolled through the final 20 minutes really, really well and put the game beyond doubt with Steve Jackson's unbelievable try. 1990,
you guys, minor premiers in all three grades. Heavy favourites going in to the grand final against the Panthers. You lost in the first qualifying final, which probably gave you that good wake-up call. Let's now forward onto the Storm. They're in a similar boat. They've lost 4 games this year. They've got a team heavy full of representatives. They're expected to win. They're going to be a little bit nervous as well, thinking, okay, this is our game to lose. What's the mindset for Craig Bellamy and the Storm this weekend?
Oh, they're good front runners, so they won't change much. I thought the second half last week against the Broncos ran them into form, semi-final form. So they've got too much experience to fluff it, if that's a good word. They'll play to their potential. It's down to the Cowboys and how well they complete their sets and their kicking game. It's got to be exactly the same it has through the whole series. I thought the Cowboys played their best game last week as well. So that sort of marries up to what a really exciting game. So Storm will be at their best. The Cowboys need to be better around but they complete the way they do. They need to complete nearly 90% on the weekend. Yeah. Plus their kicking game has been extraordinarily good. So if that all matches up, won't be much in it. But the final side might even go into extra time. Who knows?
Oh, we hope we do. I hope it's a blockbuster.
Oh, it'd be good, wouldn't it?
You've been heavily involved over the years, Mal, and you still are with what they call the Big Three. The blokes like Cam Smith, do you reckon he'll be rallying the boys to kind of go out on a good night for the jersey, but also for Cooper?
Yeah, that's part of the motivation. But no, he's pretty composed character. He'll just be working on what they need to do footy-wise in the back of the mind. And as you mentioned before, the guys, they helped me get my lasting memory with winning the premiership in my last ever game for the Raiders. They'll be doing the same thing. It'll be back of their minds, but they'll be just concentrating on their footy, making sure they get their roles right. And and the good thing about Cameron Smith, Billy Slater and Cooper Cronk, when it matters, so when the game's in the balance or a decision needs to be made or an effort needs to be made, they're there doing it. And that's what they're so valuable. But then Michael Morgan and Tamalolo and, their captain, Gavin Cooper's been terrific, leader of their team in the back end of the year. So, but you got to favour the Storm because of those 3 players. There's no doubt about that.
The thing is about the Storm, they don't have to play at their best and they can still win.
They will play at their best. That's what I'm saying. They'll be at their best on the weekend.
They'll be ready to go, Bellamy.
There's no doubt. And then the Cows got to be at their best as well to make it a contest.
Craig Bellamy, of course, you played with him at the Raiders. Still very passionate about Canberra. He's got green blood still deep down behind all that purple stuff. He was just always going to be a coach, wasn't he?
Well, his work ethic suggested that, so he's a great student of the game. He extracted everything out of his body and ability, so he wasn't the most talented player, but, he made the most of his talents and, and his effort. He trained hard, his work ethic was great. His knowledge of the game was great, and he learnt from the best. He's worked under Sheensy, he worked under Wayne Bennett as well. So he had a really good, upbringing as far as coaching was concerned. We've been mentored by those guys, and he's just carried it on though. But he's got a thirst for learning. He's always trying to change things up. He's got a great rapport with people. He's a great people manager. He gets on well with people, and gets on really well with his top players as well. All his players. But he deserves everything he gets out of the game at the moment, and well done.
I want to touch on 89 and 90, especially 89 with you, Mal. People talked about Canberra not having a soul prior to 89. And when you guys won the premiership, yourself and the team of 89, 90, 94 will always be remembered as the rock stars of Canberra. What was it like being able to win the premiership here and really light up the town? Yeah,
Nick, I think it started in 87. And we didn't win it, but it was our first time, first effort. And that's the lessons we learnt from 87. And we were paraded around. We had ticker tape parades and celebrations and functions leading up to the grand final. We hadn't won anything yet. We made the grand final. So it was extraordinarily good. And then obviously that held us in good stead for 89. And we had to fight hard to win that game. And and people love underdogs. They love people who dig deep and work hard and play for their community and play for each other and things like that, and handle adversity really well and win under difficult circumstances. People love that, and I thought Dean Lance coined the phrase "Canberra's got a soul," based on the back of the Raiders, the momentum that the Raiders were having through that era. It was a really good time, for me and the whole team, the whole club, and like you said, it's still going. Ricky's done a terrific job, rallying the troops, and the way to do the Vikings clap, and people want to be involved with the Raiders week in, week out. They're an exciting team to watch. We've always had that philosophy about playing footy. We don't want to be bogged down. We want to entertain our fans, and I think Ricky's taken that on as well as when he was huge part of that era. So rugby league plays a really important part in the Canberra community now.
Do you call Canberra home?
Yeah, no, Canberra is home. So married a Canberra girl as well. So it holds a special time in my footy career, but I love the place, personally anyway. So it's good to be associated with it.
You ended on a high, as we mentioned, in 94. Speak to a lot of guys here on this show, and a lot of them that are finished up, a lot of them that are kind of on the verge of finishing up. The difficulties in players when they retire, they can fall into a little bit of a hole. How was it for you in 95? Of course, you didn't play. 96. That's when the whole Super League thing broke out. You're quite involved in there. You didn't start coaching till 97. How was that 2 years between 94 and 97? How was that for you when you retired?
So at times it was difficult, making that transition from footy into real life, as they coined the phrase. So it was a difficult time, but I found my feet. I went back and I did a bit of study and all that sort of stuff, and in business. So I made usefulness of my time. So.
Bit of politics there too, Mal?
Yeah, well, a bit later on, sort of felt like I could do something for the community, but at the end of the day, it wasn't me, didn't suit my personality, so I'm glad I made that decision. A bit of honesty there. Doesn't help.
That's
a bit of honesty in yourself.
Absolutely, Mal. That was so refreshing seeing that. You can get really caught up in layers of crap that isn't you, and then you get there, you're in the lights there. This is not for me. I'm going to walk away from this. I think that was so bold, and that was awesome and so refreshing to see. And there's not enough of that these days.
Well, another good part of my life, So, when you make good decisions, it's the right decisions, you feel you can live with yourself, you feel that, you've done the right thing. So, again, it was another good life lesson for me, but at the end of the day, I think I made the right decision.
World Cup coming up in a few weeks, Mal. Now, people come out and say the person that has the Australian coach has a pretty easy job. To me, it'll seem difficult having to pick the team. There's so many you can choose from.
Well, we run deep in Australia, and people can say that around coaching the national team. It is an easy gig, working with the best players in the world generally. So the difficult thing is getting them all together and picking the right balance and getting the team happy and providing an environment that's going to stimulate them. They're going to enjoy what they do. That's important. It's been a long, arduous year, so we've got to try and freshen them up mentally, physically. We've got to emotionally attach them to the green and gold jersey because it's been a long year. They love their club footy and they love Origin. So this is another level up, as far as their representative career and personal milestones. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes that people don't see and hear about. So, but it is an easy footy team to coach. But still, you still got to prepare them well. You still got to get them to a crescendo, I guess, leading to a game and to play their best. And that's what the expectation of the green and gold jersey is, that everyone expects us to win. So that in itself comes with a lot of burden. So, for me, bringing them up and the whole team coming up for a game, and regardless of who you play against, play the best of your ability. That's what we're after. We're challenging ourselves as opposed to our opposition.
You mentioned emotionally attaching to the jersey. Growing up in the 90s, watching you guys play in the Kangaroo Tours, those big matches against England where over the years I think Australia just took off in regards to their development and left a few of the countries behind, where the English teams probably weren't as competitive as they used to be. How do we get that again, Mal? And how do we get the players busting out of their skin to play for Australia? I mean, they all do as a milestone for their careers, but to get World Rugby League straight back on the level again, especially now in Union where the All Blacks are just so far ahead of everyone else, great chance for the league to come in and take that World Globe code spot.
Pretty simple solution. We play more games, So the reason why England were really competitive when I played is that when we go into a Kangaroo Tour, we play 3 test matches. So, so the team, both teams develop through those 3 games, and all of a sudden, the third one's generally your best game, and you're exposing players to that level of footy. They're already, the English are already doing it, New Zealand are already doing it. So a lot of their players are now starting to play in the NRL competition. I think that's, we've got to come up with some sort of program there where they get access to week in, week out, really strong, hard rugby league, that will condition them, at the international level. So, but we've just got to play more games, Nick. Go back to those Kangaroo Tours, like I said, and we've got to go to New Zealand, play 3-game test matches over there to help promote the game and leave money in those particular regions, to sort of keep on propagating the game at the grassroots. So, that's the simple solution. Takes a bit of money to do all that. There's been a focus off that in recent times. So that's how we're refocusing that just to, and the other thing about it all is that if you've got a schedule of 5 years, which we have now, people can follow us. We can get sponsors on board because they understand that the whole international schedule, and if they stick with the team and they can plan, they can help promote and market their business off the back of that.
For me personally, I'm really excited. Usually the NRL season's over and people tend to drop off, but I'm so excited about rugby league because it's showcasing the greatest game of all on a global level. And it's kind of like our little mini Olympics all coming to Australia, to New Zealand, to Papua New Guinea. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, it is. And you've got to remember, we've got 14 nations playing in the World Cup, and majority of those players will come out of NRL and English Super League, So they're all quality players playing in those teams. At various levels, of course, playing in competitions, but, it'll be more competitive than it's ever been. You look at all the Pacific Islanders and how many Pacific Islanders we've got playing around the world, in England, in France, and here in Australia, So they'll be very competitive. And Fiji in particular will be really competitive. PNG just won the Intra-Super Cup up in Queensland, coming down and playing in the State League Championship, Club Championships, So it is growing. It's growing slowly, but most of the teams will be pretty strong and they'll be very competitive and, very entertaining.
You coached the Kumals before. You're a very popular man in Papua New Guinea. You mentioned the Hunters are jagged to win in the Q Cup. Can we see a Papua New Guinean team playing in the NRL?
I this is the 4th year they've been involved in the State League up there, and it's taken them 4 years to get to the grand final and win one. So that's a huge stepping stone for them. They've got a lot of work to do at grassroots levels, through their schools. But that's been worked out behind the scenes every day up there. I think the next stepping stone maybe invest in a club down here, where you affiliate with them.
Like a feeder.
Rugby league, so small steps at a time. So you got the state league, and you maybe invest in a club where your better players go play for that club, and then obviously down the track when there's enough talent around that you start to look at getting a club into the NRL.
Great. It's that time now for our segment, Simply the Best. I can't wait to ask Mal. I cannot wait for this.
And now it's Rugby League's Simply the Best, straight from the lounge.
Okay, Mal, the most underrated player you've coached.
The underrated, most underrated player I've coached, I reckon, would be Nate Miles.
Okay.
Because I know the value he brings to the footy team both on and off the field. Every time he puts on a maroon jersey, he'd give his best, give his all. Didn't quite get the accolades of the Cameron Smiths and the Jonathan Thurstons, the Cooper Cronks, but he was valuable through that great era for the Queensland side.
Might be a tricky one, this next one. The best player you've coached so far?
Oh, Cameron Smith. But in an era where, there's so many immortals in waiting, as they say, so, but he touches the ball more than anyone else. He makes more decisions than anyone else. He does more tackles than anyone else. And those decisions, the thing about him is every decision he makes is nearly the correct one.
Yeah.
And, he's got to go to dummy half. He's got to pass the ball the right way, whether it's to Cooper Cronk or to Jonathan Thurston or Cameron Munster this weekend. So he's got to go to the ruck every time trying to make that right decision.
Total innovator to the modern era, isn't he?
He is. And I played with the best hooker the game's ever seen before Cameron. That was Steve Walters.
Yeah.
Even Steve puts his hand up and he's got me. He's such an all-round complete player. Not only his playing ability, his leadership, his composure in the big moments, his reading of the game. Just things like that is extraordinarily good.
And the fact that he's such a great bloke, just a genuine, no drama kind of guy.
Well, you got to also remember that Test match. It's a back end. He's playing 3 games in 10 days. When the Test match was on the back of that, So that's testing his fitness and his ability to, recover and get back up again. He just keeps on. He's so consistent.
He'll play till he's 40 for sure.
Well, but he does so much work, unseen work too, that people don't see. But he just, for whatever reason, touch wood that, he never. I asked him a question one year, how many times do you think he missed a game? And he couldn't tell me. I said, could it be on one hand? He said, yeah, probably. So he hasn't missed many games at all. And the only games he misses this day, in this era, is that Craig will say to him, listen, you're having a spell.
He'll force him to have a spell.
But he does,
Yeah. All right, Mal, put your boots back on. The most underrated player you played with in your time?
The one player I think doesn't get enough accolades for his ability is Bradley Clyde. You ask any of his teammates how much value he is in the footy team, they'll rate him highly. They talk about the excellent hookers of the game, the modern game, the Johnny Rapers and Ronnie Coots, Brad Fittlers, those type of people. But he never seems to get mentioned in that same echelon of players.
Yeah.
And, I played with him. I know how much value he brought to the team with the ball and without the ball. How hard he worked. Unlucky at times, injury-wise, but he was an extraordinary athlete and magnificent player.
Well, he kind of invented the forward-running lock, the 80-minute lock, like the Paul Gallen mould.
Yeah, well, you're right, actually. You're right. And he was he was a big, imposing fella too, So, he'd get training. He'd win the 100-metre races and he'll win the 400-metre races, or he'd win the 3K runs. It was just a machine, but pretty smart rugby league machine.
You could see the opposition back in the 90s when they'd play. Players were trying to take him out of the game. He was that valuable.
Yeah, well, he was the guy that we're backs to the wall, or we're struggling, we're fatigued. He was the one that took the ruck up. Next ruck up.
First one there.
Show us the way. Show us the way. I loved him as a rugby league person, and he's a great bloke as well.
Bradley Clyde, what a legend. All right, I can't wait to hear this one. The best player that you played with, Mel?
Oh, the King, Wally Lewis. He was, I played a lot of footy against him, played a lot of footy with him, representative sides. You don't play Origin, you don't win 11 man of the matches because you can't play the game, mate. He'd be the difference, He'd come up with the biggest play that would make a difference in a game, So, he wasn't as involved as a lot of players, but the big moments he owned. And when the team needed something, it was a bit like what Bradley did, for Raiders. He come up with that big moment in the bigger games, whether it be Origin or the Australian games. And, he was part of a lot of premierships teams. He was part of the inaugural Broncos side. He was was outstanding. A bit like Cameron Smith and he could, Jonathan Thurston. They could see two players in front. Andrew Johns, so he was in that same echelon.
Origin in '89, I think it was 8, and he pretty much won the game for Queenstown on one leg.
He did. I mean, that's the thing about him is that you think he wasn't quick, but he was.
Yeah.
He was strong. He was strong in everything he did. He was a strong runner. He was a strong defender. His kicking game was immaculate. His passing game was sensational. But what he didn't get a lot of recognition for was his running game. Laurie couldn't match it with him that particular game. He ran around Laurie, and so Laurie wasn't the slowest player on the footy field. So I mean, it was deceptive. That's probably one of his better traits. Is people sometimes didn't give him the recognition that he deserved.
You mentioned playing against Laurie there. Since I was a kid, I've always wanted to know, was it funny coming out and playing against Ricky, Laurie and Bradley in the Origin?
Oh, I found it difficult, I must confess. I mean, it played on my mind a little bit, being good mates with them and, going through what a great era the Raiders were going through. So I found it difficult. But at the end of the day, you're not playing names, you're playing jerseys, so you try to put the names out and the faces out of who you're playing against. And you play against the jersey. So I found it difficult, though, I must confess.
I think they all did as well, especially Ricky.
Yeah, we're passionate Raiders people. Like we grew up being successful at that, but you try to put your club footy aside, and then you try to play the best of your ability. But shake hands and say to each other afterwards, "Hey, how you going? You're not hurt, are you? You ready for the weekend?
Yeah.
Can you play this weekend?" Well, that's basically the conversations, after a game. It is mate against mate, and it's not hate. We call it about hate, but it's about hating the jersey. It's not about the people in the jersey. It's about the jersey itself, and turn that into a bit of a contest.
Yeah. Malcolm Norman Meninga, thank you very much for joining us on the lounge today, mate.
My pleasure, Nick. Good on you, mate.